Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. I'm so pleased you all could join me today for the second of three parts of our series of Lunch and Learns. In this second part of the Lunch and Learn, I hope to stimulate your motivation and your interest in the recovery process and how it can affect people in the workplace. This presentation doesn't reflect, of course, all the research that's out there. I think we could be here for a full year if I tried to do that. So I'm focusing on the highlights today. We plan on talking about how to identify the proper time to address addiction in the workplace, what you can do as an employer or a coworker to support the person who may be in early recovery or recovery in your workplace, how a company-related recovery coach can drastically improve the success rate of someone who is in recovery, someone who's looking to obtain and maintain a life of abstinence or moderation, and how the efforts to support employees can lead to additional productivity in the workplace. As you can see, I'm Beth Siegert, as I said, Siegert and Associates, and there's my website and my phone number. Please feel free to take a picture of the screen if you'd like to for that information, and I will repeat it at the end of our session today. So we are, as I said, we're at Lunch and Learn 2 of 3. Which I'm so excited about. You know, I don't know what you're having for lunch. I'll refrain from eating while you all are eating, but I hope you're having something good and nutritious today. Just as a reminder, I wanted to remind everyone that addiction is actually a brain disorder. It's not a moral failure. And I'm not going to go into the American Medical Association, the American Society of Addiction Medicine, or the DSM. We talked about that in my first part of the presentation. But I would like to reiterate that no one really chooses to become an addict. You can choose to drink, smoke marijuana, smoke cigarettes. You can choose how, when, where, and with whom to do these things before the addiction pattern sets in. But therein lies a huge difference, the lack of choice of when someone chooses to spend their time thinking about getting their next drink or their next drug, thinking about using, and how that can preoccupy the mind and lead to some very difficult situations in and out of the workplace. And then if you tie that into, as many people do have co-occurring, meaning a mental illness along with the addiction, it can be quite a challenge to help someone recover from that. So addiction has 3 main characteristics, as you can see. We know it's treatable. We know it's a chronic medical illness involving complex interactions among the brain circuitry. And included in that is genetics, the environment, and an individual's life experience. But what does run across all types of addictions and behaviors that we would hope people would not be using is a loss of control. That helps define an addiction from someone who may be using in a manner of a pleasure or to have fun. Continuing use, even though you might have harmful consequences to yourself or to others. That's what stands apart someone who actually has an addiction. So our value proposition today is I'd like you to consider bringing in an executive recovery coach. What we do at Siegert and Associates is we seek to help employees sooner. We'd rather catch a person at the beginning of the slide down into that dark hole of addiction. We'll help them acquire accurate information. There's so much misinformation out there from all different sources. So recovery coaches are trained in the latest statistics and the latest protocols to utilize to help someone depending upon where they land on the addiction or the misuse scale. We'll help the person make better decisions based on their values and priorities about alcohol, drugs, and other risky behaviors. So here's my first poll. I'd like you all to participate if you would. I'm asking you, what percentage of addicted people are employed full or part-time here in the United States? 12%, 28%, 51%, 70%, or 82%? And those of you who participated in the first presentation will probably remember the answer, but I'm sure there might be a few of you who do not. So please take a moment and take your best guess. Okay. So here are the results. 28%, 50 of you, and 82%. Well, it's not any of those answers, actually. It's 70% of addicted people are employed either full or part-time. That's really quite an amazing number. So at any given time, 70% of the people in the United States who are working full or part-time are actively addicted or using their addiction. Millions of people, obviously, are hiding in plain sight, and they're struggling with more than just alcoholism or drug addiction. We're including any compulsive behaviors that are fueled by dopamine, which is the pleasure chemical that's released by your brain. This includes people who gamble, smoke cigarettes, smoke weed, overeating, internet misuse, video games, over-exercising, overspending, technology addictions, pornography, sex addiction, multiple love affairs, codependence, and the list goes on and on and on. So the employer challenge is, sometimes employers they don't want to see any evil, hear any evil, or speak any evil, which allows people to continue in their addictions instead of stepping up, suiting up and showing up and doing something to help their employees. Of course, most of this is fueled by not knowing when and how to do this. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I would have used a screen with the monkeys, but I couldn't find it. So the guys in the suits had to do today. So let's just talk about briefly the cost to a business and some of the symptomatology. First, when someone starts to go down that path of addiction, there's lost productivity and job performance, poor decision-making, which in many companies and corporations can cost millions of dollars a year. Low morale, absenteeism and turnover, accidents, needless risk-taking, theft, healthcare and insurance costs, legal and compliance costs, unexplained disappearances. And today with COVID and all of us on our Zoom screens, you'll see people nodding out, not showing up. They'll stop their video so you can't see what they're doing during a meeting. Some people forget to stop their video and everybody gets to see what they're doing. Could be kind of interesting, but not particularly what your company would like everybody to be seeing. So if you think your industry is bulletproof, I'm here to tell you you're not, okay? Would you really want to have someone who's working with you, taking risky behaviors, and at what cost to your company? And how soon do you discover the cost to your company? That's another thing that we can consider when we talk about the costs to our businesses. We may not find out for a year or 2 years what's been going on. So to combat this, many companies will have a mandatory meeting to reiterate the advantages of a healthy lifestyle and the benefits to people at work and home. That's one of the things that you can ask a recovery executive coach to come in and provide, is have a talk with your employees, a third-party person, if you will, not related to your EAP or your HR department, if you're fortunate enough to have one. So now we add into the mix the coronavirus, which has been affecting all of us for upwards of 9 to 10 months. Right now, the estimates are that the misuse of alcohol and drugs, pornography, et cetera, have increased upwards of 20 to 40%, depending upon the statistics that you read. So I'm waiting for the CDC to release their September numbers to have a clearer number for you all today. But either way, that's quite a huge jump. And that doesn't just mean addicts. It means people who are increasing their use and they're beginning to get to that point where they may slide into addiction. We'd love to catch them before they're fully addicted. So here's a gentleman, very interesting man, just a brief article that I found in Kansas City from people who are working from home, and thousands more have lost their jobs. Of course, we all know this due to COVID. So you want to ask yourself, and maybe even ask your employees, have you noticed any change since the pandemic? Not just the change in how you're feeling, but the change in your behaviors. Have you done anything to help yourself maintain a healthy lifestyle or to correct a lifestyle that isn't very healthy? One of the things that happened at the very beginning of the pandemic was a very popular pornography site, Pornhub, They announced they were going to give free access as a gift to anyone who would sign up and was stuck at home. Unfortunately, that has caused many, many issues with many employees and employers. Also, there have been reports of people's eating disorders really going out of control, over exercising, starving, overeating. People are gaining that freshman 15 in a couple of weeks instead of a year. These are all things that we can attribute to feeling very lonely and isolated. So what can you do about that? Well, a recovery coach and an executive recovery coach not only knows how to coach someone who is an executive, we also know how to coach someone who needs to begin a process of recovery, which doesn't mean you have to be a full-fledged addict. It simply means that you're heading down a path that's really not very healthy. Okay? And we can help bring that person back into alignment with their values and who they'd like to be as they start to slip down that slope. The pandemic has driven Americans into depression and drinking a lot more, according to the CDC. I'm not going to get into a lot of statistics, but drug overdose is now the leading cause of accidental deaths and claiming over 70,000 Americans a year. And the drug overdose rates due to opiates has increased 13% in the first half of 2020. So that's really a number that we can start thinking about. So it might be the person next door. It might be somebody who's your right-hand person. It might be someone you're friends with. They may not understand or realize they're going down a slippery slope. But as their employer or a coworker, you may have noticed some things slipping, maybe their hygiene. They seem not to be showing up. They're pushing their work off on other people. These are all symptoms that we take into question when this is happening with someone that we care about. So our next poll is, have you ever thought about the monetary costs of us living in a very high society? So let's try your best guess estimate here at how many billions, and yes, that's B for billions, of dollars it costs the US economy every year because of substance misuse. 100 billion, 300 billion, 500 billion, 700 billion, or 800 billion. A little hint here, the Surgeon General has stated that the US has a higher substance use disorder than people who have cancer. All right, 500 billion. It seems that everybody thinks it's 500 billion. Well, as much as I would like to tell you you're right, it's up to 800 billion. When I did the presentation earlier, the number was 714, and newer numbers have come out from the Surgeon General. We're now up to $800 billion a year. That's a lot of money. The sad part is it doesn't need to be that way. We just need to learn what to do about it. So what is a workplace intervention? Well, workplace intervention, it's a specific set of activities or products developed and implemented to change and improve people's risk, attitudes, behavior, and awareness. So intervention really is a purposeful response to an event or possible event based on risk. Excuse me just a second here. Okay. One of the interesting things about whether or not you think you need to have an intervention, and it doesn't mean that everybody has to gather in a room and hold hands and sing Kumbaya, or go to a person and stand there and say, you know, we're really worried about you. This is what we need to do. Sometimes an intervention can be something a little quieter than that. Simply hiring a coach to come in who's schooled in addiction recovery and is also a workplace coach, an executive coach, and will be able to tie the two together and help that person. Eventually, if the person wants help, they will say something, and then we can move the process forward. So here quickly are the stages of addiction. The first is chemical pleasure, which is you're at a wedding, you have a couple of drinks, you're feeling pretty good. In some states, it's legal to go out and smoke a joint. That's fine. That's for chemical pleasure. That's not an everyday thing. The second is chemical coping. Chemical coping is where the stress is starting to get to you, and about 11 o'clock in the morning, you're like, yeah, I can go have a martini at lunch. But 6 months ago, you didn't do that. You weren't using that for chemical for coping. Or tonight, I can't wait to go home start gambling, go to Atlantic City, gamble on my computer, spend like crazy, or I can't wait to go home and eat all those brownies I made. That's chemical coping. Chemical bondage is where the person loses the choice. They no longer have a choice what they're going to do. They will, come hell or high water, get a hold of whatever their substance or activity is that's going to help them feel better, that's going to release that dopamine or the feel-good chemical into their brain so that they feel better. So one of the questions, and then there's recovery, which is where someone has opted to get help, right? Most of the time it means completely abstaining. There are people who can moderate and they're okay. That's one of the pieces of having hired a recovery coach that we can help people with and help the employer understand and the employee understand where they're at in this line. One of the other things that I'd like to just discuss also is that many people will say, well, if you're going to do an intervention, aren't we supposed to go to HR? Aren't we supposed to go to our EAP? Well, the answer could be maybe. But there are many, many people who don't want to go to HR. They don't want to go to their EAP. They have no desire to have their company at all know that they're getting help or seeking help from a coach, from a therapist, from a counselor, which is why it's important to have people come in like myself and discuss there are other options. Because really the main purpose is to get the person help so that your company will stop suffering at the hands of that person. It really shouldn't matter where the help comes from, just that they get it. So we have a gentleman here. He's into chemical coping. And I'd like you all to take just a minute and think about chemical coping. Okay? What activities do you do that you might do some chemical coping? Right? Well, like I said, a birthday, a wedding, Thanksgiving's coming. Coping doesn't necessarily mean a negative thing. It can mean a very positive thing too. Right? It doesn't hurt to have a glass of wine or two at Thanksgiving dinner. Those are the kind of things that are okay. The issue is when the chemical coping spreads to 4, 5, 6, 7 days a week. That's when someone is starting to cross over the line. They're starting to depend upon their chemical to cope. They're starting to really have an issue with it. So the primary purpose is to get them to slow down that behavior before it becomes compulsive. We want to get someone to take a look at what's going on before they slide down into that black hole or off the cliff. Emotional intelligence is really the key to healthy coping for an individual standing near that edge of the cliff. Emotional intelligence and healthy coping are critical for naming and identifying the feelings of distress and knowing how to relieve these feelings and knowing that the feeling of distress will eventually dissipate. So what I'd like you to do is put in the chat box, looking at this gentleman, what do you think he's thinking? Maybe I've got a stack of reports to deal with, or sales are low, and as soon as I can make an excuse to leave the house, and I'm going to say house because of COVID, I'm going to blank. Can you fill in that blank? My sales are way off. My boss is going to be upset. And as soon as I can get out of this home, I'm going to blank. Excuse me. Let's see what's going on in the chat box here. All right, let's see here. As soon as I get out of this home, I'm going to light a bowl. There you go. Excellent. Oh, and by the way, the answers are anonymous, so your name will not appear. Looking forward to a beer or maybe a 6-pack or a case, right? Depending upon how long he has. I love the answers. It's important to understand that at this point, we can teach this person that the very thought of a psychoactive substance or compulsive behavior will release enough dopamine to provide an immediate sense of relief, right? We can change that behavior of lighting up a bowl or grabbing a couple beers to change that to a thought that will release the same chemicals. These are the skills that a recovery coach comes armed with when they have a client. So the workplace stress, we want them to step back from the edge of that black hole. We need to talk about it. I'm asking you to please invite a recovery coach to speak to your group as soon as you are able, especially during these times of COVID. Have people be able to anonymously put in a chat box or answer polls and get some answers for themselves so they get some help, and maybe they'll reach out and ask for additional help. Having safe conversations about the reality of the workplace stress, anonymous conversations, ones that their employer is not hearing, but the employee can get some relief. It's really important that that person be able to be honest, and then a recovery coach then help guide them to a healthier way of life. Therefore, bottom line, everybody wins. It's a win-win when that happens. The next phase is chemical bondage to addiction. This phase is where someone is really horrifically addicted. They lose control. Their brain chemistry has been altered. They become addicted to the dopamines that are released into their system by the abuse of a substance or an activity. Many times these people need to have immediate, appropriate medical care to stabilize their symptoms and enter into a formal process or services in order to help them recover in a healthy manner. As a recovery coach, I certainly don't want to be coaching someone who may be in the midst of withdrawals, who needs medical help. I can go in and help assess a situation and make suggestions for that person. And I have been in that situation a couple of times where the person really needed to be hospitalized in order to have medical intervention to help them go through the withdrawals. I did stay their coach while they went through that process, and then into a form of recovery. And in my earlier talk, we talked about all the different ways of recovery. So please feel free to go back to my website and review part 1. I'm not going to get in all those details today, but there are many different ways to obtain and maintain sobriety and abstinence. And there are ways to moderate also. So we at Siegert and Associates, we're all trained to help these individuals seek and get the proper medical help that they need, to help them withdrawals, to help them with inpatient or outpatient. We work along with doctors and clinicians in helping the individual obtain and maintain their sobriety and abstinence. If you go to our website at siegertandassociates.com, under resources, you will see a full list. And if you have suggestions for that full list of resources, please email me and let me know. I'd be happy to add to that list. So there's a lot of fear associated with the person who might want help, or the person that you know you need to talk to. They're going to deny, or probably will deny, that they have an issue. And they're going to be terrified. What if someone's going to find out? Well, at work, the bottom line is people already know by the time you're in the 3rd stage. People know. You're not doing your work. You're not showing up. You're not being productive. You may be argumentative, missing meetings, pushing work off, I said, on other people. Those kind of things become very, very prevalent in an active addict. Very defensive. They could have a lot of family illnesses that they need to have attended to. Many, many different signs that someone is truly in trouble. So when you think of a recovery coach, I'd like you to think of a person as being an ally, being an educator, being a thinking partner, a resource, a champion of that person, really cheering them on, helping them find their own path that's going to be workable for them. It may not be the path that somebody else has. An assessor, assessing where someone is, if someone's starting to have an issue, typically a recovery coach will know prior to the person knowing themselves that there is a problem coming up to them. And one of the things, and I'll talk a little bit just briefly about myself, is I myself am in my 33rd year of continuous sobriety and abstinence. So as a recovery coach, it's not just all book smarts. I've actually been living this for over 32 years, plus years. I'm in my 33rd year. So I do know what it's like to handle situations like being hired, being fired, being promoted, being demoted, children's weddings, becoming a grandparent, death of a family member, many, many, many instances, happy things, graduations, weddings, you name it. So it is important, in my estimation, to have a coach who really knows what they're speaking of, understands the stress that someone who is an addict or someone who is sliding into that addiction and truly understands what's happening and can help them back out. So I have another little question here. For those of you who may be thinking, that can't possibly be any of my employees. Well, in what country is the workforce dying faster than any other industrialized country as of 2019 from alcohol and drug misuse? The US, the Great Britain, Germany, Brazil, or Italy? Please feel free to put in your best guesstimate. This is an interesting one. I kind of like this one, although it's very sad information, of course. Okay. Right. Oh, everybody got it right. The United States. That's absolutely correct. Good job, everyone. So we are dying faster than any other country from our misuse, and it's only getting worse since the pandemic. So professional coaching specialty, certified professional recovery coaches. Just to let you know, this is a relatively new field, but we are sanctioned by the ICF, which is the International Coaching Federation. We combine the power of professional executive life coaching and best practices of recovery. We complement treatment services and we help with relapse prevention, and we help to shatter the stigma. There's still so many people who think that this is a moral failing, and it is not. We're going to talk about Patel here for a second. Patel is one of those people that can be a real challenge for a recovery coach. High functioning, high bottom individual. This person, Patel, received his first DUI, and it was after leaving a company function. So his company was accountable for having provided the alcohol. So there's a new level of issue with what happened with him. He went on to blame his company, and when he got the DUI and learned that he was going to be losing his license, he decided to sue his company, which put his company in a bit of a legal bind, if you will. He stated he was not an addict, not an alcoholic, but it turns out that his wife had been on him for years to quit drinking. So this is the kind of person that puts together intelligence, legal services, and denial, and can create quite an issue. This is one of the reasons why when the people he worked with noticed he was drinking a bit more 2 years prior, he started to miss certain meetings, yet he's dressed well, smiling, well educated. They didn't do anything to intervene, even though his 360 reviews were dropping over the years. This is where an executive coach with that special field of recovery would have been a great person to come in and help to intervene. There are also two other kinds of bottoms, a middle bottom where they suffered serious consequences but didn't lose anything, right? So they may have been put on probation at work, but they didn't lose their job. They just wanted to watch and see what was happening. And then you have a low bottom person where they actually lose everything. Their health is gone down the tubes. Their family is leaving or going to leave. Friends, job, the person's completely gone. So it's just a matter of time where someone like Patel, very high functioning, he might be able to hold on 7 to 10 years. But if he doesn't do something and change his behaviors, he will end up paying a very high price. We just can't guess which one or what combination, but guaranteed he will pay a price for what he's been doing. Right now, he'll sit there and say everything's fine, terrific and good. But if you speak to his family members, they're going to say that there's a lack of intimacy. The relationship isn't working. They've already been talking about leaving. He doesn't want to discuss that he has some blood pressure issues. He's having some trouble keeping it together at presentations, can't keep his train of thought, hurries, finishes them early, escapes. These are all signs that he really is headed to trouble. and signs where an executive recovery coach may have been someone who could help him. So the fourth piece is recovery. Recovery. It's truly can be a wonderful thing for people. And it doesn't mean complete abstinence. It can mean someone who's able to manage with the help of a coach in their life. But recovery, freedom from always thinking about where I'm going to get my next drink, drug, money for gambling, shopping, whatever it is. Freedom from the bondage of the addiction or heading into that addiction. People improve their lives. They improve at work. Families, if they're still there, usually come together within a relatively short period of time. You may even find this person once they are having a recovery coach and are in recovery to be back to or even better than the employee you had to begin with. They're going to be more creative, more productive. They won't be making as many poor decisions. We're human. We're going to make a poor decision every once in a while in recovery or not. But the expensive mistakes typically become a part of the past. So being able to maintain a key employee through a recovery process, no matter which combination you utilize in your employee, is a lot cheaper than having to fire that employee, paying unemployment or severance, rehiring someone, hiring someone, promoting someone, bringing them, onboarding them, training them. That's an extraordinarily expensive proposition. So I'm here to say, let's give that person a chance. Let's intervene before it gets to be a horrific situation. And being the employer, you really do have the power to do that. With that said, though, I have a question for you, how likely are you to consider hiring a recovery coach? 1, not likely at all. 2, somewhat likely, but you need more information. 3, likely, but I'd like to run a scenario by you to see if it fits or if there's anything we can do about it. And 4, I'm going to give you a call this afternoon and schedule a free consultation. I may want you to come in and talk to my people. I think I might have somebody or a couple somebodies, but they might be well protected by the people they work with. And just run it by me and we can have a quick chat. Let's give it a couple minutes. Okay, so let's see if we have the responses to that. Not at all, and somewhat likely I need more information. Great. The person who answered not likely at all, if you could let me know why that would be, I'd appreciate it. And somewhat likely, please feel free to give me a call or email me. My information will be shown again at the end of this, and let's see if I can be helpful. There is one other thing that I'd like the employer as a viewpoint. There are many laws and authorities that may require this situation to be handled in a certain manner. You need to check and make sure if you're in a type of profession or industry that has rules and codes of ethics that you need to adhere to. Employers that are regulated, by the Department of Transportation, you need to follow certain steps if an employee confesses a problem, tests positive, or is offered a second chance. The Americans with Disability Act protects people with a substance disorder if they're currently in treatment. So there are many laws. We can discuss that one-on-one if you would like to. And in some cases, it would be prudent to seek legal counsel to address all of the accommodations, especially when it's related to your particular policy and practices related to handling medical conditions, because this is a medical condition. Now, I wanted to open it up for a few minutes for the chat. Well, thank you very much. And said they don't have employees at this time, but they would definitely use me if they needed me. Thank you. But I would like to open it up for a few minutes while everybody's having their lunch here, and to see if anyone has any questions in particular that they would like me to address now. And I will put up my information on the screen. So please feel free to take a picture or write down the information or get in touch with me. So if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. And I would be happy. What is the best way for an employer to confront? What is there a best way for an employer to confront? That is an excellent question. And I hate to say the answer is it depends. It depends upon the relationship the employer has with the employee. It depends upon the degree to which the employee is going down the rabbit hole, if you will. And I suggest if the employer would like to do their own intervention without an outside person, that when they discuss this with their employee, that they do it with empathy and compassion, but with facts. Gather facts, facts regarding perhaps the employee's lack of productivity. Discuss the facts that may be reported by other employees about this particular person, like not showing up, falling asleep, the video is off on their Zoom calls. Make sure you gather all the facts and gently speak to this person about the stress that everyone, including them, is under right now. Are they noticing an issue with what's going on with them at this point in time? Has anyone in their family said they've noticed a change, or perhaps people outside of work? And then from there, depending upon where the person sits, if they're willing to admit that they might be using something a little bit more often or actually abusing something, that is where I would recommend that you have a professional come in and speak with the person and discuss what their options are, whether it's one of the HR people, whether it's an EAP person, depending upon whether the employee agrees or not, or if the employer has the power to force them, they may want to do that. But it is very, very important to gather all the facts ahead of time and to discuss with them very matter-of-factly what's going on and not get into an argument, not get into a discussion, not feed into the excuses they may provide. Well, you know, my dog's been sick and my cat ate my report, and, you know, all the things that people who are under the influence will come up with in order to defend. The thing about an addiction is it defends itself. You know, it's actually quite notable and often scary at times to see what lengths a person will go to protect their addiction. You know. Next question, should an employer call you first before dealing with an employee? I suggest yes, please do that. I'll run through the scenarios with the person, discuss with the employer what the situation is, and we can come up with a plan of action, hopefully one that will be effective with that particular employee. The other thing we need to be careful of, and I didn't mention it in this discussion today, is that the employee may threaten, whether indirectly or directly, you or other people. And I happen to be trained for many years in threat management and threat assessment. There aren't many recovery and executive coaches that have that 17-year background to be able to understand what questions to ask a particular person, especially if you may have concerns that they may act out in a very threatening or harmful manner to you, to your employees, or to somebody outside of where you work. So absolutely, I'd rather you call me first and we run through the scenario on the phone. Wonderful questions. Thank you so very much. Anyone else have any questions? If not, I suggest you think about this for a little bit. This recording will be up on my website, probably within 72 hours. Please feel free to call me or to email me with any questions. It's never a bother. And let's see if we can go out there and get our employers and employees as healthy as possible, maintain their health, have them come back to being healthy during this pandemic. Someday it will be over. So I hope we're all as healthy as we possibly can be at that time. And yes, oh, thank you so much. You're very welcome. I really appreciate it. Thank you. And again, please feel free to give me a call or email me. I'm here 7 days a week. You're very, very welcome. Thank you, everyone. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your lunchtime. We're 4 minutes early. All right, everyone. You take care. Have a healthy and happy rest of your week. Thank you for coming.